Welcome back to CBS Sports HQ. It's Monday, so time to update the latest edition of Matt Snyder's Power Rankings. And we have ourselves a new number one. Matt loving what the Phillies did Saturday night against the Mets, essentially sealing the division. Yankees and Brewers also heading north into the 2 and 3 spots. Dodgers dropped 3 spots, and Matt still has big-time questions about this rotation as the postseason approaches. Let's update the playoff pictures here, starting in the National League. The Phillies and Dodgers in the bye spots. The wild card series would feature the Brewers versus the Mets, with the Mets holding the tiebreak over Atlanta and the Padres against the Diamondbacks. You see the Mets and Braves giving chase there. In the American League, if the season ended today, it would be the Yankees and Guardians that get the byes. The AL wild card would feature the Houston Astros versus Minnesota and Baltimore facing Kansas City. Let's talk about the playoff chase with our Matt Snyder and General Manager Jim Bowden. The Tigers and Mariners, guys, they're not out of this. Both teams 2.5 games back of that final wild card spot. Both have won 7 of their last 10. Detroit has 2 series against the top 2 wild card teams in Kansas City and Baltimore this week. Matt, what do they need to do in those 6 games to realistically stay in this, and how high is the level of regret right now for the Mariners?
Probably pretty high. I'll get to the Tigers first. They need to just keep playing the way they're playing. 4-2 might not cut it. They're probably going to need some help, maybe 5-1 in their next 6 games. It's a shame they don't have any games left against the Twins, because then they could make up that ground on their own. But they do get the White Sox for 3 games to close the season. And if you just kind of assume, which we can do that, the Tigers can't, but if you just kind of assume they're going to win those 3 games, that makes the road look a lot easier. And look, they're going really, really well right now. They have a very good bullpen they have all year. The rotation's been great in the last month. We know all about Tarek Skubal, who's going to win the Cy Young, but Kiter Montero has been great. Offensively, guys like Kerry Carpenter, Zach Hensbury, Holt Keith picking up the slack there. And yeah, the Mariners, surely they have regrets. There are several. For example, they went 5-8 against the Angels this year. That has to be hanging over their head a little bit. But huge 3 wins against the Rangers this past weekend. Victor Robles, Rook Raley really swinging the bat well. Some signs of life from Julio Rodriguez. And in the final week, 3 in Houston before they finish with maybe a soft landing, 3 games at home against the A's. The Mariners are definitely still in this as well.
You know, it's interesting because both the Mariners and Tigers have very similar teams. What's interesting is the Mariners have the best ERA in the American League. The Tigers are second. So they're the 2 best pitching staffs in the league, and yet right now they're on the outside looking in. And they're on the outside looking in because both teams have struggled offensively. Now, both of them recently, the bats are starting to come alive. You look at the Tigers over the last 6 games. Riley Green hitting .364 with 3 home runs. Colt Keith hitting .350. And Spencer Torkelson, who's having a really good end of the season, batting .412 in the last 6 games. Parker Meadows with a couple of home runs. So that's been key for them. And on the other side for Seattle, look, we all know how good this pitching staff is, right? Best rotation in baseball. All 5 starters have an ERA under 3.5. That includes George Kirby, Louis Castillo, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu. But like the Tigers, they have struggled scoring runs. Well, over the last 30 days, things have changed. Victor Robles is hitting a robust .448. J-Rod, who went 7 for 17 over the weekend, including 2 homers, but Saturdays went 440 feet, and the bat flip was incredible. And Randy Arozarena, by the way, 4 homers, 4 steals during that time. So both of these teams have really put it together. And it was interesting because I was talking to Matt Cortrero, the manager of the Kansas City Royals, yesterday, as they get ready to play this series with the Tigers. And he said, Jim, we've had to do such extensive advance work because this Tigers team in September is so much different than the team that we saw from April to August. So we've had to do a lot of work of digging to try to figure out how to get their hitters out and how to pitch them. It's a much different team, and they're a real threat. Going to be a very fascinating series.
The Mariners, on the other side of that, get their week started against the Yankees, who expanded their lead atop the AL East to 3 games over Baltimore. They've won 4 of their last 5. Orioles are going the other way. Those 2 face each other next week. Jim, is that when you expect this division to be decided?
Yeah, look, I said all along, I think the Yankees are going to win this division. They've got a 3-game lead. And I think when we look at what's happened to this team over the last couple of weeks, a couple of things that have happened have been key for them. Aaron Boone, the manager, moved Gleyber Torres to the leadoff spot. Once he did that, He's hitting .308 over his last 30 games. He's getting fastballs to hit. He's doing damage. That's been a key. The other thing is, at the trade deadline, when they traded for Jazz Chisholm, when they finally decided to bring up Jason Dominguez, and they finally started giving the green light to Anthony Volpe, Dominguez, Chisholm, and Volpe have stolen 17 bases over the last 30 games. That's given them an entirely different dimension of a way to score runs besides having Judge, Soto, and Wells do all the damage in the middle of the lineup. So this lineup is much better at the top with Torres, much better at the bottom with the speed they have. The other thing that happened is when Clay Holmes, the closer, started to struggle, Aaron Boone pivoted. He went to Luke Weaver. Weaver 2 for 2 in save opportunities, put up a 1.35 ERA in 12 appearances. Tommy Kahnle, by the way, a 1.8 ERA in his last 11 appearances, took the pressure off of Holmes. Now Holmes is pitching better. And remember, this rotation is 6 deep, and it is much better than the Orioles rotation after Corbin Burns. It's really not even close. So, yes, I think it'll come down probably the last weekend, but I think the Yankees are going to hold off Baltimore and win this division.
I'm just glad that our long national nightmare is over with Aaron Judge finally hitting another home run. I was starting to get concerned he was never going to hit a home run again. No, I'm kidding. Look, it was good to see Judge get back on track with that home run. That's obviously a big deal because Soto and Judge have had to do so much heavy lifting for a lineup that has not been consistent outside of those two. I really think right now the Yankees are in just don't screw it up territory. I know the lead is only 3 games, but they're going well right now while the Orioles are totally not going well. And as Jim said, the Yankees starting pitching is so much more deep than the Orioles starting pitching. And yes, there are those 3 games, but if they just don't get swept, they're probably fine because the Yankees are going to close with 3 games against the Pirates in the last series, and I don't think they're going to have to deal with Paul Skeens in that series. So even if they need to win after that Orioles series, they should be good to go. So like I said, I think the Yankees are just in don't screw it up territory right now with 2 weeks to go.
As mentioned, the Phillies showing everyone that they're ready for the pressure of autumn with that series win over the Mets. It's now a 9-game lead atop the division. They get the Mets again this week, but this time in New York. With the division essentially locked up here, Matt, what's their focus as they head into the final couple weeks?
I just said just don't screw it up on the Yankees. That applies much, much greater to the Phillies because really they can't screw this up. Once you get the magic number inside the number of games that you have by your lead in the division, it should be smooth sailing here. Their magic number's down to 5 over both the Mets and the Braves, and they have a 9-game lead. So I think they're kind of in maintenance mode. That is to say, Bryce Harper has talked about how he's been banged up in the second half. Maybe get him some days off here to try to get him as right as possible before the postseason. Whatever consistency they can get out of Ranger Suarez the rest of the way is going to be a big deal heading for the postseason. Stuff like that. You just need to get guys right because you're going to make the playoffs. You're going to win this division. You're going to get that bye. It's all about having your team in the best shape possible by the time you start playing those playoff games.
But I do think they've got to put the pedal to the metal at least until the last several days of the regular season because you want that home field advantage. They only have a 2-game lead over the Dodgers to get that home field. And I think a lot of us believe that when we finally get to the NLCS, it'll probably be the Dodgers and the Phillies. The Phillies want those 4 games at home. It is a huge difference maker, especially in that ballpark at Citizens Bank Park. So I do think they're going to go pedal to the metal until the end. But to his point, there's no question on occasion you want to give certain guys a day off, but right now everyone seems to be in a really good spot, right? Offensively, Harper, Realmuto, and Marsh all hitting over 300 this month. Sanchez and Wheeler continue to deal. Wheeler's going to finish second in the Cy Young to Chris Sale. And the bullpen's been lights out, right? Orion Kirkgreen hasn't given up a run in his last 12 appearances. Matt Strom in his last 10 appearances at 1.80 ERA, and Carlos Estevez has an ERA under 1 in his last 9 appearances. So everything's going right for the Phillies. I think, and I may be wrong, I think Matt Snyder finally will leave Philadelphia in the #1 spot for the rest of the year because I think that's where they belong. But we'll have to wait and see. Maybe next week something will happen and he'll change his mind. I don't know.
Lastly,
I'm with you. I'm with you. I think they're going to stay put.
Lastly, let's talk about the team that's currently tied for the final National League wildcard spot. But the Mets have the tie break, so it's a pretty simple formula. We're talking about the Atlanta Braves here as they finish off their series with the Dodgers tonight. Jim, give Jacqueline a little bit of hope here in terms of what's happening with the Braves.
Well, I mean, Francisco Lindor's having an MRI in his back today, so that's going to be huge news. I mean, he's going to finish second in MVP or first with Ohtani, so that may be news. But for Atlanta, the whole thing, Jacqueline, is can they score runs, right? We all know they don't have Ron Acuna Jr. outside of sitting in the dugout giving thumbs up. No Ozzie Albies, no Austin Riley, and then their star players aren't hitting. Marcell Ozuna has 1 home run in his last 30 games. 1. Arcia's hitting 189. Michael Harris hitting 219. Jorge Soler 206. Kelnick 188. All in the last 30 days. They're not hitting. Now, pitching-wise, they're first in the National League in team ERA. Second in Major League Baseball to Seattle. But can they score runs? I mean, right now, the only way they win is they got to outpitch it. Tonight, Max Fried against Yoshinobu Yamamoto. This is a huge game for Max. They need him to pitch the best. But for Jacqueline, score some runs and you got a chance. But that offense really has been putrid.
The schedule actually sets up pretty well for them after they deal with the Dodgers again tonight. And by the way, they've played really well in this series, except for 1 inning. Now, that 1 inning was a complete disaster, but it was only 1 inning. They go to Cincinnati next, then they go to Miami. They should be able to handle the Reds and the Marlins. Let's say they can go 4-2 there. Then they've got the Mets for 3 games at home, and they can take care of business on their own. So it's all set up for the Braves to take care of business on their own. It's just a question of if they can get the job done.
Matt Snyder and our general manager, Jim Bowden, talking playoff races in the majors. Matt's latest edition of the Power Rankings available over on CBSSports.com. If you look at our MLB games for tonight, Dodgers and the Braves mentioning finishing off that series. And the Phillies, Matt mentioned Ranger Suarez. He's on the bump tonight as they start a series with the Brewers.